Hello, beloved, and welcome back to Simple Life Chronicles, where we share our practical country life to encourage and edify you. My name is Aisha, and if you're new here, welcome, welcome. And if you are one of our returning subscribers, thank you so much for your support, and we hope that these videos have been an encouragement to you. Today, we're going to be talking about everyday compost. One of the great things about composting, especially the way that we do it, is that it's an everyday thing. It's not something that has to take up a whole day or half a day. You can do it just as part of your everyday routine. And so I have some things gathered here by the system. As you can see, we have a 3-bay system. I'm going to actually take you a little closer so you can see what it is that I brought with me over here, and then we'll get it all in. But I'm going to talk about what we have, how we use it, and how it may be something that you want to utilize in your experience, whether you're going to use it right where you are or you're planning to save this in your pocket for when you get to the country. So just hold on, let me move the camera so I can show you what we have. All right, so as you can see behind me, we have a 3-bay cinder block system that it took about, I want to say 100 cinder blocks roughly to make this 3-bay system. There may be a way to use less of them, but I can provide a link if you're interested to the website that I used where the pattern for this was provided. And so I did things based off of their pattern. And I also want to say that this system didn't start off as 3 bays. It actually, when we got here at first, I did a makeshift compost container using some T-posts and some plastic fencing that I just had in our stuff. And I knew that that wasn't a permanent solution, but I was doing the best I could with what we had until I had made up my mind what I really wanted to do. And I was forced to find something better because we have some groundhogs around here, and we have squirrels and deer who like to partake of the goodness of the compost bin, and they ate several holes right through that system. And so that's where the cinder blocks came in. We actually last year only had the first bay that you're looking at behind me. And this year, this summer, we actually just extended the other 2 right off of the first bin. So just want to let you know, you can start off small and extend this, and I could even extend this further if we wanted to. But for now, 3 bays I think will serve us well for a while. If not, then next year we'll be adding. But back to what I was about to say. It's a very simple system to work. What we do is the first bay is where we put all of the fresh material, all of the cuttings from the garden, all the leaves that I rake up or pick up from the yard, any brown material. This is where the original mixing takes place, in that first bin. After a while, that bin gets full. Doesn't take too long around here. So then when things get full there, we move it over to the second bin. So that's why the second bin doesn't look very full, and it actually is much smaller than when I first put it in there because it was continuing to break down. And then after the first bin gets full again, this second bin now has to move to the third bin, which, let me fix this. Oop, you're not even seeing that. To the third bin, which is empty right now. And the third bin is really there just to hold the finished product. So I know where to get the good stuff when it's time to plant things. Perfect. So now you should be able to see just about everything that I have over here to get things started for our composting today, what we like to do is collect things, and then when I need them, we bring them over. That way I don't have to constantly figure out what to do with them, but when I need to put them in, they go in. No big deal. So we have a couple ways that we collect scraps. The first thing that we do is collect scraps from the house. So I'm going to show you what that bucket looks like. It's got a nice screw on top that you can get from, I believe it was Tractor Supply Stores. Carries this. It's called a Gamma Seal lid. I'll provide a link in the description box so that you can actually check those out if you're interested in learning about them, because you can use them in the suburbs too, not just here where we are. You can use them anywhere. And there's also the 5-gallon bucket that we're using for it is just from Walmart. Just simple. So let me pull that out. I'll show it to you. This orange bucket, that's what it is. Nice screw on top. I'm not going to unscrew it because it's nasty in there. I'm not going to open that until I'm ready to get it in the bin. You'll also see these blue 5-gallon buckets that are in the cart. Those are full of water, just like they were in the video that we talked about getting started and how we water things here on the property. So those are full of water. I like to keep some water with me because when I empty the orange bucket, you'll see that in a moment, I like to be able to rinse things out, and so having some water nearby is great. There's also 2 other buckets. One of them is green over on this side over here. That green bucket is from the garden. I actually just keep that bucket close by the garden so that if I walk through to pick tomatoes or to see if I have any strawberries or whatever I'm looking for, if I notice something that needs to be pruned or needs to be pulled out or cut off, whatever, if there's rotten fruit or something like that, I will just put that in that bucket. And I also put ashes in that bucket to keep it from stinking until I'm ready to dump it. Right now, it's an interesting development in there because I put the ashes and there were some tomatoes that were rotten that went in there, and there were also some offcuttings from the tomato plants and also from the basil plants. And it rained after I put those things in. So things are actually bubbling in there. So it needs to get into the compost bin before we have some strange concoction brewing out in the middle of the yard. I also have some cardboard boxes with me. And those are just cardboard boxes that we ordered things, and they came with cardboard boxes. And I'm going to do a whole video about using cardboard in all of its applications, but this is one of the ways, another way that I utilize it. It provides a brown material to go along with all of the fresh green material that I'm about to put in the compost bin. When I say brown, I'm talking about your carbon-rich materials. That's going to be paper, cardboard, twigs, dried leaves, dried hay, dry straw, those kind of materials. You need to balance those with the green material, the offcuttings from the garden, old rotten fruit, fresh grass clippings. Those are called green materials. They're higher in nitrogen. Those things that are higher in nitrogen, when they are too abundant, they cause things to stink and they become slimy and they putrefy. The brown material, when added in proper amounts to your compost, helps to keep the smell down, and really you won't smell it at all if you get it right. It also helps to provide structure to your compost so that when you actually use it for planting, the plants have something to hold on to. In addition to the cardboard, which I'm going to put in after the stinky stuff, I have some old seaweed. Somebody actually gave this seaweed to me, and I had every intention of using it to make my own sushi, vegetarian sushi that is. And so that never happened, and it's expired. I probably could eat it, but I'm not going to risk it. I'm just going to put it in the compost bin. Now, we have our collection bin from the house, and we put just about everything that comes off of our plates, that comes out of the kitchen, goes in there. As far as food waste, it goes in there. We are total vegetarians, so there's no dairy, there's no meat, there's no butter, there's no eggs or anything like that going into the compost bin. If you are still using eggs, dairy, meat, then you're going to want to be careful about separating those things out. Any dishes that you make that have egg in it, I would shy away from putting the egg yolk. The egg shells are nice. If you crush the egg shells into your compost, that goes very nicely. I have to research whether or not the egg is okay. I know that you want to avoid putting dairy and flesh meat into your compost pile. They will really make things become quite stinky, and they will start attracting animals like bears, wolves, scavengers. We have vultures here also, so those kinds of things would attract your predators and your scavengers, which would really become a messy procedure. So I'm going to research if there is any information about what to do with them besides just bury that stuff. I know that if you just bury it and bury it good, you shouldn't have any issues. But composting, I wouldn't recommend those materials for that. Not based on my research anyway. But I ramble, and I'm rambling, and I'm going to get back to the point here. I'm actually going to just let you see how I just put things into the bin. I actually would have been done already for as long as I've been talking. But I just wanted you to have a little bit of background into what I'm putting into the bin. You're probably also going to see me use the rakes that are standing up behind me next to the compost bin. I'm going to use those to grab some of the old grass that's hanging around, because once it dries out, that becomes a brown material, and it also just helps to cover things over so that we don't have a smelly problem. So hold tight. We're going to get things in the bin now. I just remembered that you can't hear me when I go over there, so I need to really just kind of come over here and talk to you because I don't have a microphone yet. So the next thing I'm going to put into the bin, I just crumpled up some of the seaweed. I'm going to put the rest in later, but I'm going to put in the garden scraps now because that's going to be a stinky mess. And I'm actually going to rinse it out with some water. And then we're going to put in the kitchen scraps. Okay, so both of the stinky buckets are empty now. That's all the fresh scraps from the garden, sorry, and from the kitchen. What I'm going to do in both of those buckets is I'm going to add a little bit of the ashes from our burn pile. We have a fire pit. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. We have a fire pit where I burn down a lot of the yard waste that I cannot readily compost. So things like weeds, invasive trees that I've cut down, any branches that I had to cut off of the trees on the property, any wood that was lying around the property that is otherwise just going to rot and be in the way. All of that gets burnt in the fire pit in the afternoons when I have time. And those ashes I then collect to use in the compost bins, so that it actually provides a couple of services for us. It helps to decrease the smell. So in our scrap buckets, I will put some ash, just a little bit, in the bottom to start off with, and then I may layer it in. As I add things in, I'll layer in a little bit more of the ashes to help absorb smell. Also, the ashes provide a carbon-rich material, so that adds to my carbon ratio, helps to balance out those greens and browns like I was talking about before. And finally, in the big compost bin, it not only helps to mitigate, again, the smell that can sometimes develop from a compost bin, but it provides a wonderful source of potassium to help enrich the compost, and it helps to balance the pH in the more alkaline direction. Usually the materials that I'm composting produce a very acidic compost, and if you're growing blueberries and tomatoes, that's great, but there are other plants that need a little less acidity. So balancing the compost out a little bit is actually good. I try not to overdo it with the ashes, but we do use them to help to make sure that we get a compost that can be used across a wide variety of plants. And then if a plant needs a more acidic environment, I can then adjust the pH on that particular site in that particular area of our gardening. So I hope that wasn't too technical. If it was, just drop it in the comments box and tell me to just not get so detailed in my explanations of what I'm doing. But I just want you to understand what's in that gray bucket. The gray bucket is the ash bucket. I'm going to put some ashes in both of the buckets, and I'm also going to put a little bit of the ashes over what I just put in the compost bin so that it starts to settle things in. All right, so now that that's done, I'm going to do some last minute stuff. I'm going to add in the rest of the seaweed that I brought out with me and the cardboard that I brought out with me. I'm going to tear it up, put it on top of everything, and as a final topping layer, I'm going to add the dry grass to make sure that we just cover everything over. I don't want any of the fresh putrefying stuff to be exposed. I really want to cover that over, provide a layer, a buffer layer, so that when we're walking through the yard, if you came to visit here, you probably wouldn't even smell anything. You wouldn't even know where the compost bin was, except for if I told you. So we want to make sure it stays a pleasant experience having it on the property. We actually put the compost bin way over here because I was scared about having aromas reach back to the house, but we haven't had any issues so far. Praise God for that. Let's get the rest of the material in the compost bin, and then we're gonna go back inside. That's why I don't have my wide brim hat on today, because I don't plan on staying out here longer than just to put the compost in. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I'm just going to take the buckets back to their respective places. Sorry. And we do this about twice a week. So again, like I said, it's not something that's going to take up all of your time. Twice a week, I'm going to be out here for maybe 10 minutes emptying everything. The only reason why this video took so long is because I was trying to explain everything, but it's something that you can easily add into your routine so that not only do you get rid of waste and decrease the amount of things that you have to take to the dump, which we have to do around here because there's no trash pickup at our location. So we take everything to the dump. The less things I have to take to the dump, the better. And as an added benefit, we have a rich and nutrient dense compost to use. I've used it to grow pumpkins, greens, tomatoes, blueberries, ginger, turmeric. So you can use this compost to grow just about everything. Peas, you name it. Pick a plant. I don't think there's any plant that I could name that won't benefit from the use of compost. So until next time, keep it simple and be blessed. Bye-bye.